Tributes are being paid this morning to the Friends actor Matthew Perry, who has died at the age of 54.
The star who played Chandler Bing in the globally successful sitcom, which was one of the biggest shows of the 90s and noughties, was found dead in his Los Angeles home.
In the months before Matthew Perry left the world, something strange was happening that most people missed. On the surface, he looked healthier than he had in years. He was playing sports again, smiling in public, posting hopeful messages, and talking about the future like he was finally ready to live it. Fans thought this was the beginning of a new chapter, a calm, peaceful stretch in a life that had been anything but easy. But behind that hopeful image, there were subtle signs that Matthew was carrying a quiet weight he never fully let anyone see. People noticed the confidence in his interviews but missed the long pauses between his words. They heard his jokes, but overlooked the way he often spoke about fear in the same breath. Even his closest supporters said he gave off a strange mix of strength and fragility, like someone rebuilding a house while still standing in the ruins of the old one. He was trying to move forward, but the past had left shadows that followed him everywhere. Matthew had spent most of his life fighting battles he talked about openly, but felt deeply alone with. Fame never protected him. Success never saved him. And in his final months, he was trying harder than ever to become the version of himself he always hoped he could be. He was exercising, staying active, working on new ideas, and reconnecting with the world in ways that made fans believe he had finally reached the peace he always wanted.
With US media reports saying he was found in the hot tub. Our reporter Louisa Pilbeam reports.
As Chandler in 90s sitcom Friends, Matthew Perry was catapulted to worldwide fame along with his co-stars.
But when people looked back after everything happened, they began to notice the small things they missed. A certain tone in his words, moments where he seemed distant, reflections that hinted he was searching for something he could not quite grasp. It was not sadness exactly. It was something heavier, something quieter, something that suggested Matthew was dealing with a private struggle that never made it into the headlines. And what made it even more heartbreaking was that his final months were filled with a kind of determination that only appears when a person is trying to outrun the last pieces of a long, emotional fight. A fight Matthew had spent most of his life trying to win in silence. In the weeks leading up to his final days, Matthew Perry seemed to be doing everything right. He was playing pickleball almost every morning, spending time outside and staying active in ways that made friends believe he was finally settling into a healthier routine. He posted small glimpses of his days that felt peaceful. Nothing dramatic, nothing alarming. Just a man trying to rebuild his life with quiet intention. But people only saw the surface. They did not see the moments when he slipped back into long stretches of silence, or the way he sometimes disappeared from friends without explanation. Matthew had always been skilled at hiding pain behind humor and confidence. It was something he perfected during the years he played Chandler. Fans were so used to seeing him smile that they assumed everything was fine when he did. But those closest to him said there was a softness in his voice lately, a tone that hinted he was tired in a way that sleep could not fix.
It became one of the most watched TV shows of all time, running for 10 seasons. And Chandler Bing was known for his sarcastic humor.
Then why would he say it?
Because he's crazy. Okay, he came up to me earlier and thanked me for my very moving performance in Titanic.
They noticed that he was trying to stay busy, not just to stay healthy, but to keep his mind from drifting into darker places. Activity kept him moving. Stillness made him think. People who spent time with him described him as motivated, but also reflective. He talked about the past more often. He brought up regret streams he still wanted to chase, and the pressure of carrying a decade of public struggle on his shoulders. He wanted to inspire others, but he was still wrestling with questions he had never fully answered for himself. There was a quietness to him that did not fit with the energetic image fans believed. What made it even more subtle was the way he spoke about wanting peace. Not fame, not attention, just peace. Words like that come from a person who is tired of fighting battles that never seem to end. And in those final calm weeks, Matthew carried a mixture of hope and heaviness that only makes sense after you look back at everything he had survived. It was this hidden emotional tension, the soft, unspoken conflict inside him, that hinted his final months were not as simple as they appeared. And the signs became even clearer when people began revisiting moments where Matthew revealed just how heavy recovery had been on him. To understand Matthew's final months, you have to understand the battle he had been fighting for most of his life. Recovery is not a straight line, and Matthew spoke openly about that long before his last days. He shared how every step forward came with its own kind of pressure. The pressure to stay healthy, the pressure to stay hopeful, the pressure to be an example for others who looked up to him. Even after years of improvement, the emotional toll never disappeared. It stayed with him in ways only he could feel. In his memoir, he talked about the physical scars and the long hospital stays, but the emotional wounds were the ones that stayed open the longest. He admitted he felt lonely at times, even when surrounded by people. He revealed that success did not heal anything, and attention did not make recovery easier. When the cameras turned off, he was still a man trying to hold himself together while the world watched every move he made. One of the hardest parts for Matthew was the expectation that he should be grateful to be alive.
But in the early hours of today, US media reported that the actor was found dead in his hot tub. The Los Angeles Police Department confirmed to the BBC that a man in his 50s was unresponsive in a water emergency at the actor's home.
He was grateful, deeply, but gratitude does not erase the weight of a lifetime of battles. Sometimes he felt guilty for still struggling. Sometimes he felt misunderstood because people assumed he was fully healed when he was still working through the echoes of his past. The pressure to stay strong for everyone else made him carry even more of the burden in silence. And in those final months, that silence became more noticeable. He spoke less about his struggles in public, not because they were gone, but because he wanted to focus on helping others instead of reopening his own pain. He often said he hoped to be remembered more for the people he helped than the character he played. It showed how much his heart was still tied to his past, even as he tried to move forward. The truth is, Matthew wanted to inspire people, but he was still a human being, with battles that did not disappear just because he talked about them. And that lingering weight only became more visible when you looked at how Hollywood continued to shape the way people saw him. Even as Matthew tried to rebuild his life, one thing never stopped following him. Hollywood never let him be anything other than the character he played in his 20s. Fans loved Chandler, but for Matthew, that love came with a burden he could never fully explain. No matter what he achieved, people always referred to him as the funny guy, the sarcastic one, the character who made everyone laugh while hiding his pain behind a smile.
Today, one of the 5 people charged in the overdose death of Friends actor Matthew Perry pleaded guilty. CBS News correspondent Carter Evans was inside the courtroom as the Los Angeles doctor admitted to supplying Perry with a copious amount of ketamine.
That image was impossible to escape, and it weighed on him even when his career shifted in new directions. Matthew once said that fame felt like a cage at times. He appreciated every opportunity he had, but he was also painfully aware that the public only saw one version of him. They did not see the hours of work he put into staying healthy. They did not see the moments of fear or doubt. They did not see the parts of him that were still healing from a lifetime of pressure. They saw the jokes. They saw the smile. They saw the character, and they treated him like he was supposed to stay that person forever. Friends said he struggled with that expectation in his final months. He was trying to be himself, not the character he played. He wanted people to understand the man behind the jokes, the man who cared deeply, the man who wanted to help others avoid the road he went down. But every time he spoke publicly, he felt the shadow of his past roles leaning over him, reminding him of the life he had outgrown. He quietly stepped back from red carpets and late-night appearances because he was tired of pretending. He did not want to force humor when he felt reflective. He did not want to be asked about old episodes when he wanted to talk about the future. That gap between who he was and who people wanted him to be created a pressure that never truly went away. And in his final months, he was trying to finally separate himself from that expectation. He wanted peace. He wanted purpose. He wanted to live as Matthew, not as a character he played decades earlier. This shift in focus led him into a new mission that few people knew he was developing behind the scenes. What many people did not realize was that Matthew Perry spent his final months trying to create something meaningful.
Warner Brothers TV, which produced Friends, said they are devastated by the actor's passing, saying he was a true gift to us all and that their heart goes out to his family, loved ones, and all of his fans.
He was not drifting. He was not lost. He was focused. Friends said he talked constantly about wanting to help others who were fighting the same battles he fought for most of his life. He had ideas for new projects, new foundations, and new ways to turn his painful past into something that could save someone else. This mission gave him direction during a time when he needed it most. He had mentioned wanting to start a program that provided support for people recovering from addiction, not just with treatment, but with real guidance and emotional structure. He wanted to give people what he often wished he had during his darkest moments: stability, understanding. Someone who knew the road and could walk beside them while they found their way back. Matthew believed that helping others would give his own life a deeper purpose, something that stretched beyond acting or fame. At the same time, he was also working on creative projects, writing ideas, story outlines, notes about life lessons he wanted to share someday. His mind was active, and his plans were bigger than people knew. He had moments of real excitement about the future, and some friends said they felt hopeful seeing him talk about new beginnings with genuine enthusiasm. It showed he still carried a spark that had not gone out, even if he was fighting quiet battles behind the scenes. But what made his final months even more emotional in hindsight was the contrast between his hope and his exhaustion. He wanted to rebuild his life with purpose, yet he was still wrestling with the weight of everything he had survived. That tension between hope and heaviness was visible only to the people paying close attention. He was trying to move forward, but the shadows of his past were still close behind him. And as he continued pushing himself toward new goals, the signs that something deeper was happening became more noticeable. His energy shifted, his tone changed, and the peaceful routine he created began to look different once people saw the full picture of what came next. As Matthew settled into his routine in those last days,
That's right. Salvador Plasencia is the Los Angeles doctor accused of selling ketamine to Matthew Perry in the months leading up to his death. Now today, here in federal court behind me, Plasencia was wiping the sweat from his face as he told the judge he was guilty.
nothing seemed alarming from the outside. He was doing the same things he had been doing for months, staying active, playing pickleball, spending time at home, trying to maintain a sense of calm and structure that gave him stability. Friends said he looked focused and even content at times. There was no dramatic shift, no obvious warning that something was wrong. But there was a quiet stillness around him that only made sense after the fact. People who saw him described him as thoughtful, sometimes distant, like he was carrying something heavy in his mind that he did not want to burden others with. He spoke less about the future, not because he did not care, but because he seemed to be processing something internally. His final social media posts reflected that mood. Simple moments, quiet scenes, words that felt reflective and calm. Fans looked back later and wondered if he was trying to say something without saying it directly. The truth is that Matthew had always been a private person when it came to his deeper emotions. He could talk openly about recovery, but the quiet moments of fear or doubt he often kept to himself. In those last days, he seemed to be living gently, almost like he was trying to hold on to a sense of peace he had spent years searching for. There was no chaos, no drama, just a man trying to stay centered in a world that had never stopped watching him. When the news of his passing reached the world, it struck with a force that left people breathless. No one expected it. No one was prepared. Fans and friends were left replaying his recent moments, trying to understand how someone who seemed so hopeful could leave so suddenly. Those questions created a sense of heartbreak that has lingered ever since. But the most powerful part of Matthew's story is that his final days were spent trying to live with intention,
Providing it to Matthew Perry's assistant to administer to him. Though the prosecutor pointed out the ketamine that Dr. Plasencia provided was not the fatal dose for Matthew Perry. That came from another source.
He was active, he was rebuilding, he was trying. And that quiet determination revealed more about who he truly was than any character he ever played. In the end, Matthew Perry's final months revealed a side of him the world rarely saw. He was not giving up. He was trying. He was rebuilding his life with patience and quiet strength, even as he carried battles most people never fully understood. His days were filled with small victories, moments of peace, and plans to help others avoid the pain he had lived through. That determination, that desire to turn his experience into hope for someone else, was the truest reflection of who he really was. Matthew wanted to be remembered for more than a character on a screen. He wanted to be remembered for the lives he touched, for the honesty he shared, and for the courage it took to speak about the struggles people usually hide. His story is not defined by how it ended, but by the strength it took to keep fighting for so long and to still offer kindness to others along the way. And maybe that is the part the world should hold on to. The reminder that even the people who make us laugh carry weight we cannot see. The reminder that compassion matters. And the reminder that Matthew spent his final months trying to leave something good behind.